This video I'm going to show you how to use Java code to read in JSON or use JSON parser. So first you need to download it's from this link. We have JSON that you can download, jar, okay, and you can use that jar to include in the project. So we go to the same place where we're going to include project. Go to File, Project Structure. Let's say you can add as a libraries here, Java libraries. And so one thing, if I add here, I have to go to download folder, right? So if I don't want to go to download folder, I can actually move that, right? I think I have two versions, so I'm going to get this one. Or we get the latest one in 2016. I can just technically move it to my libraries here, right? Projects library here. And then I'm going to do the same, go to File and Project Structure and add this jar. Apply this. Okay, so now it should be ready for me to use the classes that reside in this library from org.json. You may see that they have JSON array and so on. Now we're going to test to read JSON files. So of course you need to create JSON, right? So to test, I'm going to make it simple, like the small code. Like from this, we have this JSON. Let's test this JSON. It's small. We want to make sure a small one works first before we get to real big JSON. I'm going to go back and create a file, right? That's pretty much just a file name. Let's say test.json. So JSON, just do .json and just paste that. So this is JSON file, right? JSON is the file that pretty much just contain the data. We have the attributes like page info has page name and picture, right? That's the name of the page and picture of the page. And post ID, actor ID, pick of person who posted. So this is just has the store the record of people who post that page, right? When you post something on the web. Now we're going to read that JSON in. We're going to start with create a class, and we have partial code that we can start to use, right? So I'm going to create a new class and name JSON test. Okay. And just do public static void main string args, right? Alright, so let's read this code together. So first you will need a library that you like. I want to read that JSON file, right? So I'm going to create JSON object, right? So this pretty much just import from this org.json. So import org.json.json object. All right, so we have that, and let's just talk about JSON object. So JSON object pretty much we're gonna refer to test.json. So we can always look at the library too, like Java doc, right? We should have a Java doc how to use this. Okay, or you search. So test dot So now we need to make sure what type of parameters that this will take, a string, or would it take the path or not, right? So, and this is JSON array, because we have to make sure it's the right path too. So JSON object read the file test.json. So let me split. And now we have the whole JSON object, which we can say when you get the JSON object, we can go into page info and get string. It's return the values like page name ABC. We store right there, right? Since this one with the array, you see square brackets, that array. So we have to use JSON array, right? And that's the name post. And you iterate through it to get all the information, but this is searching for post ID information, right? Which you can do more than that. And let's make sure this is public to this. Then we try to see if we can print it out. Page name page post ID. So there's a problem with we can't do test.json like that. Okay, so I'm going to test by copy and paste that into IntelliJ, and IntelliJ will put an escape sequence for us, like those slashes. And let's see if we can create object from that. Expected. So it seems like the problem is the JSON data that we have is not the right JSON structure. That's why I keep complaining about JSON problems. So I tried with, so I went to grab the data from w3schools.com JSON, learn JSON. So this is JSON data. First we need to understand what's JSON, JavaScript object notation. So this is an object, like I create an object like class employees, right? And object had the attributes like first name and the data, last name and the data. So this is pretty much storing as the object employee with all the data here, all the data. So JSON must start with the curly braces and then the name in the quotation and colon with the square brackets, the set of the records or the data for employees. And each record pretty much has the curly braces again and separate by commas for each data. And the values is separate by column. So that is the correct data structure or format of JSON files or data. So I copy and paste into it, just add escape sequences for me. Now, after that, I just say, hey, this is my JSON object. Now we're going to see how we're going to read this data. So let's make it simple first. So this is an array because it's with the brackets here. So I'm going to read in as an array, JSON array. I'm looking for employees, right? Right, get JSON array employees, which it should have the loop, right? Where the values I'm looking for, let's say I'm going to create f name and I'm going to create L name, first name and last name for each attribute. So f name equals to array.getJSONObject at, it's going to be the length, right? Let's just iterate the length, where the getString ID is first name, and then we get the f name values, right? And then we have last name that is going to store into L name, and then we're going to print them all out to see if we are able to just read and parse JSON into our variables f name and L name. Then we can manipulate this data. So run the test, and voila, we got it. So that's how you use JSON. Just make sure JSON is in the right format. Alright, so now we know that this is working, but we said instead of copy and paste the code there as a data, we actually can read the file as a JSON. So let's say I'm going to create a JSON file here. So this is the same JSON data here, right? So create as, it could be .txt, it could be the text file here, new file, and we just say data.txt, and this is the JSON data here. And we're going to read copy the path to the file, which is right there, and put it here. So this is the file that we want to read in, and we use the buffer reader, right? So it's going to read other line in was not equals to null, right, and concatenate with a new line every time when it there is in. So now we going to comment this one out, and we name it as JSON data now. So we're gonna use JSON data instead, right? And that's just exception handle and closing the buffer reader, and it works the same. So just do the buffer reader. Okay, now instead of reading from the file here, I'm going to comment this out now, and I'm going to paste the code that we're going to read from the URL, right, which is where we get the JSON. So this is the data JSON that we get from Google API that we want to read in. So this is the data that we want to test here, if we can read it in instead of using this data. So the URL pretty much just replaced with the parameter that we want, and we have to import URL connection, input stream reader. It's use buffer reader and input stream reader, and so we have to do exception here, and the exception we can do try catch or just throw for now just to test. We're supposed to try catch. Alright, so it looks like it read in, put in input line, right? So let's just run this first to see. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to see if I can read in the data first from that URL. There you go. So we get the data in. That's the JSON. And now we want to use JSON part. So instead of input line, I'm going to use JSON data. Or I can use input line, but I need to concatenate this instead, right? Or print it out, and this is going to be input line instead. So now we get the data in. We just need to modify the this one we have to do the result. So it's going to isolate the result, and it's going to get all the setup address components.